In the quiet halls of a Canadian courthouse, a decision was made that would change the lives of two people forever. The case of Jagjit Singh, a man facing deportation from Canada, became more than just another immigration file. It became a testament to the power of love, the complexity of medical conditions, and the compassion that can be found within legal systems. Jagjit Singh had been living in Canada, building a life, forming relationships, and creating the foundation of what he hoped would be his permanent home. However, like many immigrants around the world, he found himself caught in the intricate web of immigration law, facing the very real possibility of being forced to leave the country he had come to call home. The deportation order had been issued, the paperwork processed, and the wheels of bureaucracy were turning toward what seemed like an inevitable conclusion. But at the heart of this case was not just one person. It was a marriage, a partnership, that had weathered storms and celebrated joys together. Jagjit Singh's wife suffered from attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, commonly known as ADHD, a neurological condition that affects millions of people worldwide. ADHD is far more complex than many people realize. It is not simply a matter of being easily distracted or hyperactive, as some might assume. ADHD is a neurodevelopmental disorder that affects executive functioning, the mental skills that include working memory, flexible thinking, and self-control. For adults living with ADHD, daily life can present unique challenges in organization, time management, emotional regulation, and maintaining stable relationships. The condition affects approximately 4% of adults globally, and its impact on personal relationships can be profound and far-reaching. For Jagjit Singh's wife, her husband represented more than just a spouse. He was her anchor, her support system, and her emotional stability in a world that often felt chaotic and overwhelming. People with ADHD frequently struggle with rejection sensitivity, a condition where criticism or perceived rejection triggers an intense emotional response. The stability and understanding provided by a loving partner can be absolutely crucial in managing these symptoms and maintaining mental health. The Canadian court was faced with a complex decision that went beyond simple immigration law. They had to weigh the legal requirements for deportation against the human cost of separating a couple where one partner's medical condition made such separation potentially devastating. This is where the concept of irreparable harm comes into play in legal proceedings, a standard that courts use to determine whether an action would cause damage that cannot be undone or adequately compensated. Medical experts and mental health professionals testified about the potential psychological consequences of the separation. They explained how the sudden removal of a primary support system could trigger severe depression, anxiety, and potentially dangerous mental health crises in someone with ADHD. The condition already makes it difficult to regulate emotions and cope with stress, and the trauma of forced separation could exacerbate these challenges exponentially. The court heard testimony about how ADHD affects relationships and why the marital bond in this case was particularly crucial. Adults with ADHD often experience what researchers call emotional dysregulation, which means they have difficulty managing their emotional responses to everyday situations. A supportive partner can serve as what psychologists term an external regulator, helping to provide the stability and grounding that the ADHD brain struggles to create internally. Furthermore, the court considered the broader implications of the case for immigration law and humanitarian considerations. Immigration systems around the world are increasingly recognizing that family unity and medical considerations must be balanced against enforcement priorities. The principle of family reunification has long been a cornerstone of immigration policy in many countries, acknowledging that forced family separation can cause lasting trauma and harm. The judge in the case carefully reviewed evidence about the wife's medical history, her treatment plan, and the role that her husband played in her daily management of ADHD symptoms. Mental health advocates often emphasize that ADHD treatment is not just about medication. It requires a comprehensive support system that includes understanding family members, structured routines, and emotional stability, all of which were provided by her marriage to Jagjit Singh. The legal team representing Singh argued that deporting him would essentially be sentencing his wife to a mental health crisis, potentially undoing years of progress in managing her condition. They presented evidence showing how disruptions to routine and support systems can trigger severe ADHD symptoms, including depression, anxiety, and in some cases, suicidal ideation. The argument was not just emotional, it was backed by solid medical evidence and expert testimony. the court's decision to halt the deportation was based on a careful analysis of what constitutes irreparable harm. In the context of medical and psychological well-being, the judge recognized that while immigration law serves important purposes, it must also be applied with consideration for humanitarian factors and the real-world consequences of enforcement actions on vulnerable individuals. This case highlights the evolving understanding of mental health conditions like ADHD and their impact on families and relationships. It demonstrates how legal systems can adapt to recognize the complex interplay between immigration law, medical needs, and human relationships. The decision sends a message that courts are willing to consider the full human cost of deportation, not just the legal technicalities. The story of Jagjit Singh and his wife represents thousands of similar cases around the world, where families face separation due to immigration enforcement, and where medical conditions add layers of complexity to already difficult situations. Their case became a precedent, showing that love, medical necessity, and legal compassion can sometimes prevail over rigid bureaucratic processes. This case serves as a reminder that behind every immigration file, every deportation order, and every legal proceeding, there are real people with real relationships, real medical needs, and real consequences that extend far beyond the courtroom. The Canadian court's decision to prioritize the medical and emotional well-being of Jagjit Singh's wife demonstrates that justice, at its best, considers not just the letter of the law, but the human spirit and the profound connections that bind us together as families and communities. This powerful story of compassion triumphing over bureaucracy shows us that even in our complex legal systems, there is room for humanity, understanding, and hope. Cases like Jagjit Singh's remind us that immigration is not just about policies and procedures. It is about real families, real love stories, and real medical needs that deserve our attention and empathy. As we continue to navigate the challenges of our interconnected world, stories like these inspire us to remember that behind every headline, there are human beings whose lives hang in the balance. Thank you for joining us on West is Best as we explored this remarkable case that touches on immigration, medical advocacy, and the power of love to overcome legal obstacles. If you found this story as compelling as we did, please take a moment to like this video, share it with others who might benefit from hearing Jagjit Singh's story, and subscribe to West is Best. For more in-depth coverage of the stories that matter most, your support helps us continue bringing you the human stories behind the headlines. And we truly appreciate every like, share, and subscription that helps our community grow.